Okay, so lesson 76 is I'm under no laws but God's. We have observed before how many senseless things have seemed to you to be salvation. Each has imprisoned you with laws as senseless as itself. You are not bound by them, yet to understand that this is so, you must first realize salvation lies not there. While you would seek for it in things that have no meaning, you bind yourself to laws that make no sense. Thus do you seek to prove salvation is where it is not. I just wanted to make a quick comment on this paragraph here. How many senseless things you have seemed to you to be salvation? Like I've shared in this group, I come from a food addiction background. So it was like food was salvation for me, when there was problems in life. Donuts, binging on food, it came as the solution to life. And so that seemed to be salvation when life was difficult. The food seemed to be salvation. But I've also had like my career, career and work and money as well to be salvation. I think another way to call them is the false gods. You worship them to get you out of a pickle, and you hope that they're going to sort of save you from the troubles. So there was food, there was work, there was relationships, all of the, they were going to sort of pull you out of the pickle. So, and there's, we'll be coming into this later on. I'll leave the medicine bit and the money bit for later on because this lesson goes into that. So, I love this, while you would seek for it in things that have no meaning, and they bind you to laws that make no sense. That's so brilliant, even that line. Because one of the early lessons in A Course in Miracles is that all my thoughts are meaningless. And also, it teaches you to look around the room and to look at each object and say it's meaningless. They're all equally... This table is equally as meaningless as that light bulb. They have equal levels of meaninglessness. And then if I look at a person, if I look at to that person over there, he's as equally as meaningless as that light bulb. So this is like, for me, it's like enlightenment. Is that every single thought is equally as meaningless as the next, and every object perceived. And why is that so? Is because the ego, I'll take it that you guys have a rough understanding when I say the ego, but the ego has projected so much meaning and value and ascribed so much meaning to various thoughts. So various thoughts are classified by the ego as special thoughts. Some of the thoughts are like, oh, the grass is green, the sky is blue. Those are meaningless thoughts. But I haven't been paid. That one's like... That's a special thought. We have also meaningless objects, but then we have special objects. So the table, for most people, will be a meaningless object. But if it's like an ex-girlfriend or something, that might be a special type of object, you see. So there's various things, they're projected with ego meaning, prior meaning. So hence, so while you would seek in things that have no meaning, you bind yourself to laws that make no sense. Now, in my experience, I was very attracted to, I won't go into the full story, but one of the teachers, he's of course a Miracles teacher as well, Dr David R Hawkins, and he did his own work. But, he had about 23 illnesses, and he did A Course in Miracles, and they all left. And he knew Gerald Jampolsky, and he set up, he knew him personally, and he set up an attitudinal healing center, I believe in New York. And there people who had AIDS, cancer, myasthenia gravis, all those illnesses left them. So it was like I was so astounded by the thing. At the time I had I had several illnesses. I had kidney failure, I had gout in the feet, and asthma. And I knew that this guy was telling the truth, that if you were to, it was, and his essence, which for me is the essence of A Course in Miracles, is that, any belief I hold in mind, I'm subject to. But in truth, I'm an infinite being. So if I was to let go of all of my limiting beliefs, then I would experience my limitless self, which is free of all limits. And anyway, I won't go into that story, but he also, he was a medical doctor, also a psychiatrist, Freudian psychoanalyst, but he also had a spiritual awakening as well. He became a teacher of enlightenment, and he had the 23 illnesses, and I did the lessons like my life depended upon it, because I go, oh, well, if he can let go of 23 illnesses, and the group that he administered, people with cancer and AIDS and everything, were releasing it, then I'm in for the course, with absolute faith, because I also had a spiritual experience as well, so I kind of knew it was the truth. And the gout after a few years, the gout attacks stopped happening, and they stopped the medication. The asthma clinic, they discharged me because I didn't have asthma. I had a miracle of a transplant, so I was off the dialysis machine. All these miracles, I can only call them miracles, happened. Now, I guess, he also put his view across, my background is, a degree in biochemistry. And, the thing on the science, and the thing for that is the Heisenberg principle. If you look at the Heisenberg principle and quantum mechanics, then that starts to open the door of what's really happening in spirituality. It just starts to open the door, which is that when an observer observes something, it affects, whether what is seen is a wave or a particle, just by observing, which puts into, the thing of causality. Is it causality, or does the observer have an effect? But, but what about, as Hawkins said, the level of consciousness? You have a scientist look at some particles. What if you had a saint look at those particles, who has got less of the ego in the way, so you'd have that much more power? Hence, I would say, the reported miracles around saints, like Mother Teresa. Someone just appears, goes off to Mother Teresa, and suddenly their cancer's gone, just disappeared. How does that happen? So those are the miraculous, which you then have to see that power is actually coming from absence of ego, connecting to an infinite source of limitless power and the capacity for miracles. And the more one is engaging in thinking, it's like it creates a block to that limitless power, light, and potentiality for miracles, which is always there. So next bit, number 2. Today, we'll be glad you cannot prove it. For if you could, you would forever seek salvation where it is not, and never find it. The idea for today tells you, once again, how simple is salvation. Look for it where it waits for you, and there it will be found. Look nowhere else, for it is nowhere else. Think of freedom in the recognition that you are not bound by all the strange and twisted laws you have set up to save you. Now, this is also beautiful. This whole lesson is just amazing. But think of the freedom in the recognition that you're not bound by all the strange and twisted laws. Now, it will come up a little bit later on, all the twisted laws. But you'll see that in the collective of the society, within the scientific community, there's collective belief systems on how the world operates. Within general society, there are collective belief systems on how the world was, and it's like the idea tells you again how simple is salvation. So these for me are just man-made. These are just belief systems. And I'll expand on that. You see, the belief. I would put it along this. Is that we get programmed by beliefs. We get programmed by beliefs from childhood, from parents, from family, from culture, from TV. And those beliefs actually have, I would put forward, and I would say that, like even such a thing as, apologies if, these are just my views, but, the Course talks about magic. What's in the world we believe in is magic. So, for example, now this may be quite a stretch, but actually the thing of like medicine working would be termed magic by the Course, you see, it'd be magic. Actually, what does that mean? It would mean that it's due to the belief in something working that it works, you see. And that's and actually you catch an illness due to picking up the belief, So that sounds, and you can release illnesses by releasing the belief in them. Or if you believed enough in a drug that it would work, you see. So everything in manifestations at the level of thought, because the ego is wired up to causality, which is that things out there have the power. Like, the drug or the person has the power. But actually, as you release the ego identification with thoughts, then you get connected to the real power, you see. But anything that is believed, positive or negative, with absolute belief, creates manifestation. It comes into, and I would say like, one of the things, if you look at things like that, would then explain things like the placebo effect, you see. It's like, sometimes if you give people a sugar pill, and a doctor in a white coat sort of says, this is going to cure your illness, you'll always get like a certain percentage of people that will look at the doctor, believe it with 100% certainty, and then the sugar pill will actually do what, through medical research and clinical trials is supposed to happen, via scientific understanding through statistical significance. So, and that's been proved, to in my own sort of, my own experience. So think of the freedom in the recognition that you're not bound by all the strange and twisted laws you have set up to save you. You really think that you would starve unless you have stacks of green paper strips and piles of metal discs. Now this is lovely. So you think you would starve unless you have basically money, pound notes and coins. And I think one of the lessons is it's in God we trust. Our trust should be in God. And hence, so it's talking about, hence the projection that money is salvation and safety and security. Whereas actually, those who are spiritually connected always get taken care of and recognize that it's the spiritual connection through spiritual work. It means grace is always taking care of them. I don't know if people are aware of certain, if you look at the lives of saints or spiritual teachers, it's like everything is always provided for them. And there's actually a YouTube video with Mother Teresa being interviewed on YouTube, and it's a beautiful interview. And I could get where she was coming from. And the interviewer asked her, "Have you ever had to turn away someone who knocks on the door seeking help?" And she said, "No, never. There's always been an extra bed and extra food available." And it was like, like I got it. It was like the grace already made sure, through the mystical means, that there was always enough when a person was expected, that they would have the food and the bed. That is mystical. That is beyond the realms of thinking and logic. But those type of things, like we're doing a course in miracles. I mean, that's what I would call miraculous. Miraculous is beyond even is beyond how one rationally thinks or uses logic or anything. It's in the realm of mystical. I would say it's more powerful than logic and has the capacity to do. So really, it's not. So I would say it's not really about how much money is in the bank, but how spiritually connected to the infinite source. That creates miracles and safety and a feeling of love and compassion and oneness and connection. Not how much money. One can still have a lot of money in the bank and still feel very fearful, insecure and disconnected. So it's not that. So you really think a small, this is the line on medicine. So you really think a small round pellet of some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle will ward off disease and death. You really think, yeah, okay, so this is really important. So this is the thing of the course going, that I wouldn't classify the Heisenberg principle in quantum physics. That's a little bit different. But generally, original science, which is based on causality, this creates that. This atom creates that and that. When we get to quantum physics and the Heisenberg principle, we're going to a slightly different realm, which is more towards the realm of the spirit. Everything comes from the source, not from causality out there. So it's basically saying that's not true. But I would say if you believe it, then it does happen. But actually it's the belief. Like if you take a sugar pill, if you take a pill and you 100% believe it will cure your cold, it will. And also if you give someone a pill and say it's 100% positive, the research is 100% positive that it will cure you, but you don't believe that, it won't. So it's kind of funny in that way. So that's slashing money and medicine, which are two of some of the greatest belief systems in society. Here's probably the last main one. You really think you are alone unless another body is with you. You really think you're alone unless another body is with you. That is, of course, for me, it is the thing of the course talking about. Well, you see, later on in the course it says, "I'm not a body. I am free, for I am as God created me." So, and later in the later lessons it talks about oneness. That connection of limitless connection. So for me, when the course is talking about all my thoughts are meaningless, and then it says, "I'm not a body, I'm free, for I am as God created me," what it's doing there is helping one to release the identification with thoughts so that one can experience a more limitless eternal presence in the present moment. Because one has released being identified with the thoughts which pulls one in to a field of limitation. One is less present as one starts to be in the thinking in this moment. So the limitless unified connection that is always here starts to get obscured, especially if one is really hooking into thoughts in this moment. So if you let go of that, then you start to feel a love which can never leave you, and where you feel joined to everything that surrounds you, because that which is identifying with thoughts or with the body is being released, and that limitless connection, that oneness, that peace, that stillness, that eternal connection. For me, what is the ego? On a simplistic level, you could say the ego is the source of fear and separation. And what would be the opposite? If you release the ego 100%, it would be love and connection infinitely, all the time, everywhere you go, non-stop. And there would be no such thing as a block or an experience. I would say, in a non-dualistic sense, there wouldn't be even the feeling of a separate me relating to a separate you would start to disappear. So this field of grace or this field of love is ever present, and there's unity and connection everywhere you go. So that feeling of loss, the loss usually happens if there's prior attachment to people. Then there can be a grieving out of the attachment, or processing out of that to get to peace. So it is insanity that thinks these things. You could call them laws and put them under different names in a long catalogue of rituals that have no use and serve no purpose. You think you must obey the laws of medicine, of economics and of health. Protect the body and you will be saved. So, this lesson is really doing a hatchet job on the laws of medicine, economics and health. And you think you obey. You think you must obey. Well, because you believe in the laws, you're subject to them. If you believe something, like if you believe the side effects on a thing, you'll get them. this tablet creates nausea and side effects, and you really believe that, you probably will, every time you take them, get nausea and side effects. The laws of medicine, health, protect you. But, this is a course in miracles. So how do you access miracles? Well, you access miracles by letting go in the beliefs, the limiting beliefs of the collective. Beliefs such as, you've only got a 30% survival rate. Those type of things are extremely damaging if you believe them, you see. So, these are not laws but madness. The body is endangered by the mind that hurts itself. The body suffers just in order that the mind will fail to see it is the victim of itself. Yes, the body is the mind will fail to see that it is the victim of itself. Essentially, the more beliefs that are held in mind, it's more like, it's like the spiritual connection gets clogged up. It's off in the future, the past, trying to control things, fear about money, fear about relationships, fear about health of the body. Also there can be fears of aging, all kinds of things can arise. And these create a block to that eternal grace and source in the present moment. So then the mind becomes a victim to itself. Just sharing from my own experience, when I had the miracles of the gout, the asthma leaving, all of these things, and I could see that like in lesson 14 of A Course in Miracles, God did not create cancer, so it is not real. God did not create asthma, so it is not real. God did not create kidney failure, so it is not real. So as I kept affirming those or cancelling those beliefs, then when the belief was gone, it's like a miracle happened and it was released through grace. You see, so I also do I'll cancel beliefs around aging, and I still have a few to do around that as well. So the body. So let's see. Oh yes, it's the level of identification with thought that creates this blockage, and the beliefs, strong belief systems that create the blockage. So the body's suffering is a mask the mind holds up to hide what really suffers. It would not understand it is its own enemy, that it attacks itself and wants to die. It is from this your laws would save the body. It is for this you think you are a body. It is for this that you think you are a body. I mean, the ego has very, very strong identification with the body. It's one of the greatest things that creates fear, is the identification with the physical body. And then the labeling from the ego that the body is my life. Without the body, then I'll be dead. That's what the ego says. So through spiritual work, as I was sharing earlier, when you release the identification with the body, you start to experience something which is eternal, eternally present, prior to the identifications with body and thoughts. We might go in the self-inquiry session later on, we might go into how to get that. But if you let go of your identification with being busy in your thoughts in this moment, and let go of your identification with monitoring or being interested in the physical body, an eternal, timeless oneness, which is going to be here and which can never ever die, starts to reveal itself. And through spiritual work at a certain level, one stops identifying so much with the thoughts or the physical body, and now recognizes that the source of one's life can never ever die. One's life is in fact eternal and is beyond death. So that becomes a spiritual experience or a recognition at a certain point, if enough spiritual work is done. So there are no laws except the laws of God. This needs repeating over and over until you realize it applies to everything that you have made in opposition to God's will. It needs to be applied to everything. And the course is brilliant in telling you how to repeat it every half an hour, every 15 minutes. Keep letting go of, for me, the laws of...
So what paragraph then? I just lost my space.
Sorry. We're on paragraph 6.
Right.
So in the middle of paragraph 6. So, it needs to be repeated over and over again, because they're beliefs. How do you get rid of a belief? Well, if I believe I've got something very, very strongly, I have to affirm the truth over it, over and over again. Like, if I believe I'm a body, I have to say I'm not a body. I'm free, for I'm as God created me. And if I really, really believe I'm a body, I really need to say I'm not a body. I'm free. And actually that is affirmed throughout the course many times, so I can get that spiritual experience. In that, the fear of death, the fear of aging, also what is death, and can death happen to others? It's like the Holy Spirit transmutes the meaning of many things, and through spiritual revelation, through miracles, or through grace, a new understanding or a new way of recontextualizing the events of life starts to occur. So, but this repetition thing is really important if you have a belief. So, your magic has no meaning. What it is meant to save does not exist. Only what it is meant to hide will save you. Now that's quite amazing. So your magic has no meaning. It's saying, forget your strong beliefs in money, in medicine, and stuff like that. They have no meaning. And what it is meant to save does not exist. Now that's a bit of a strong one, but if you take the course that this world is an illusion, then to experiencing the absolute truth, then that would start to make sense. Only what it is meant to hide will save you. That's very, very telling. So by being identified with your thinking, with the body, with all the concepts and ideas and belief systems that reside within it, it's like that is what's blocking off the recognition of absolute truth. It's like that level of identification with thoughts and beliefs is blocking off like an eternal peace and love that is always here and can be recognized as you just let go. You could say, the course is helping you to let go of everything that's held on to the recognition of truth. And I think the course would call that love. I would say it's a limitless love that is ever present. So anything that's being held on which has limits, it creates a sense of limit in the now. So if I'm identifying with lots of thoughts, there's a sense of limitation. If I'm identified with the physical body, what's happening in the body, there's a sense of limitation. As that's released, it's like the absolute truth reveals itself. So it's like the ego was meant to hide everything. So on to 7. The laws of God can never be replaced. We will devote today to rejoicing that this is so. It is no longer a truth that we would hide. We realize that instead it is a truth that keeps us free forever. Magic imprisons, but the laws of God make free. The light has come because there are no laws but His. We will begin the longer practice periods today with a short review of the different kinds of laws we have believed we must obey. These will include, for example, the laws of nutrition, of immunization, of medication, and of the body's protection in innumerable ways. Think further. You believe in the laws of friendship, of good relationships and reciprocity. Perhaps you even think there are laws which set forth what is God's and what is yours. Oh yes, the reciprocity. For me, that's very much how most humans think. I'm going to do something for you, you can do something for me. I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. We're going to get into a relationship because I'm good at doing this and you're good at doing that. I'm good at fixing computers and you're good at reading poetry, whatever it is. So that's how normal relationships may work. But really, it's like there's a source where one can be more authentic than that when one's connected to the source. And one can give love without expectation of reward. Hence the St. Francis thing. It's not to seek love, but to be of love. So one is connected if one is connected to the source of love within, one can give love generously. If one isn't, then one is always seeking a payoff. So you believe in the laws of friendship or good relationship and reciprocity. Perhaps you even think that there are laws which set forth what is God's and what is yours. Many religions have been based on this. They would not say but damn in heaven's name. Yet there are no more strange than other laws you hold must be obeyed to make you safe. On to 9. There are no laws but God's. Dismiss all foolish magical beliefs today and hold your mind in silent readiness to hear the voice that speaks to you in truth. Hold your mind in silent readiness. How can you hold your mind in silent readiness? Well, every thought would have to be rendered meaningless. Because if any thought in the present moment is held with special significance, you won't experience the silence in the now. You probably experience the silence in the now, the stillness, the eternal oneness, the experience of something that can never ever die, a source of love that will never abandon. That can be experienced in the now, but if in this moment a thought with special significance arises, like, I haven't got enough money to pay my taxes, and you're attached to it, then you'll be blocked off from realizing the stillness that is always here. So hence, so I love that. You'll be, so dismiss all foolish magical beliefs. I would say dismiss all foolish magical thoughts. They're all equally meaningless. And hold your mind in silent readiness to hear the voice that speaks the truth to you. You will be listening to one who says there is no loss under the laws of God. This for me is hearkening back to when one experiences the eternal nature of the self, then one is beyond the field of loss and death and dying. One is in the field of the eternal. So in that field, when you're in the field of oneness, in the eternal, it's recognized that there can be no loss under the laws of God. So payment is neither given nor received, exchange cannot be made, there are no substitutes, and nothing is replaced by something else. God's laws forever give and never take. Hear him who tells you this, and realize how foolish are the laws you thought upheld the world you thought you saw. Because all the laws of the world are based on fear and separation, and death and suffering and loss. So he will tell you more about the love your Father has for you, about the endless joy he offers you, about his yearning for his only Son, created as his channel for creation, denied to him by his belief in hell. Let us today open God's channels to him, and let his will extend through us to him. Thus is creation endlessly increased. His voice will speak of this to us, as well as of the joys of heaven, which his laws keep limitless forever. We will repeat today's ideas until we have listened and understood there are no laws but God's. Then we will tell ourselves, as a dedication with which the practice period concludes, I am under no laws but God's. We will repeat this dedication as often as possible today, at least 4 or 5 times an hour, as well as in response to any temptation to experience ourselves as subject to other laws throughout the day. It is our statement of freedom from all danger and all tyranny. It is our acknowledgement that God is our Father and that his Son is saved. So that would then apply, I'm under no laws but God's. As soon as I'm believing in scarcity, with money, with health, with relationship, I would quickly need to affirm, I'm under no laws but God's, because I'd be believing in something in the realms of the ego's ideas of limits and fear and separation. So that's actually, that along with lesson 14, is actually my favourite